We begin today the Gemara on Daf Yud Aleph at the first line on top of the Yamad. Tanya, the Gemara continues here regarding the greatness of the mitzvah of tzedakah. We learned in the Braise, Omru Allah bal Binyamin HaTzadik. It was said about Binyamin the Tzadik. Shahaya Mumuna al Kupishal tzedakah, that he was appointed on the fund of tzedakah. So Pamachas, once it happened, Bava Basra Isha Lefanav B'Shnei Batzeiris. A woman came to him to ask for tzedakah in a hunger year. Amra Loi, she says to Binyamin HaTzadik, Rebbe Parnaseni, my Rebbe, give me food. Allah, so he says to her, Ha'avayda, which is a term of a shvua. He swore and said, She'ein b'kupishal tzedakah klum. It's a year of a hunger and there's no funds in the tzedakah funds for me to give you any money. Amra Loi, so she says to him, Rebbe, my Rebbe, but if you will not give me money for food, Hare Isha v'shiva banea mesim. So here, this woman and her seven children will die. So Ahmad Binyamin got up and Pernisa Mishaloi. He gave her money from his own pocket. He gave her money. So the Mefarshim point out, obviously what had happened over here is, it's not that he had money of his own in abundance to give her and he refused to give her. In other words, besides the fund of tzedakah, he had money of his own. He had very little for himself, and the little that he needed for his own food. And he took from that very little that he needed from his own food and gave it to her. Then later on, what happened? Liyomim, days later, or a time later, Cholov and not Lamos. So Binyamin HaTzadik got sick, and it was a point that his life was in danger. The Malachim said in front of the Eibishter, Master of the universe, Ata Omarta, you said, Kol HaMekayim Nefeshachas MiYisrael, one that is Mekayim, one soul, amongst Yidden, he saves the life of one soul of Yidden, Ki'ilu Kiyam Mole. It's like he was Mekayim an entire world, as it's learned from from the fact that Adam Rishon is created single, one person, and from him comes all human beings in the world. Or we also learn out from what it says by Cain when he was killed, Koil Dmei Achicha Tzayakim, that it's not just Cain that was killed, but all of his descendants that were killed along with him being killed. So when you're Mekayim one person, it's as if you're Mekayim O'ilam Maleh. Or Binyamin HaTzadik, Shehechia Isha V'Shiva B'nea Yamos B'Shanim Mu'atis Alalu. So Binyamin HaTzadik, that saved the life of this woman and her 7 children, he should die at this young age. Yad Koroloi Gzardinoi, immediately the decree against him was torn. Tane, we learned in the Braisa about Binyamin HaTzadik, Haisifuloi Esrim V'Shtayim Shana Al Shneisav. Another 22 years was added to his life, the schus of this tzedakah that he gave. Tane Rabbanan and Braisa, we learned another thing about the greatness of tzedakah. Maisa b'Munvaz HaMelech. There was a story with Munvaz the king. According to Rashi, Munvaz HaMelech was the son of Hilni HaMalka, and she came from the Chashminoim. And others say Munvaz HaMelech actually was a ger, and he was a king at a certain point. Different perushim of exactly who he was. Anyway, so this Munvaz HaMelech, Shebizbez, it's Eitzreisav, V'Eitzreis Aveisav, he went and opened up and squandered all his treasures and the treasures of his fathers, of his ancestors, B'Shnei Batzeiris, in a year of a hunger. And he allowed everybody to come and take whatever they needed, whatever money they needed in order to be able to feed themselves. Now after this, so his brothers and the people from his family ganged up against him, and they said to him, look at what you did. Your ancestors, Gonzu, they put away the money and all the precious things we had here in this treasure. They added to what their fathers had. But what do? You open it up and you allow everyone to take. So Munvaz answers them, no, you're making a mistake. What I did is much greater. And here's going to point out 6 different things of why what he did is, by giving this tzedakah to letting everyone take, is greater than what his ancestors did. Avaisai gonzulamata. My ancestors, they hid these treasures here below in this world. By me giving tzedakah, I hid a treasure for myself above. Shnema, the pasuk says, "Emes me'eretz titzmach." When a person does emes, which refers here to tzedakah here in the earth below, so then tzedek mishamayim nishkov. Then the Eibusha has tzedek, all the goodness for you above in heaven. Another thing, avoy zay gansu b'makom sheyat sheletes by. My ancestors, they hid their treasures in a place where someone can come and take it from them. And I hid my treasures in a level, in a place where no hand can even have control, can take it. As it says, if you do tzedakah in this world, where there's the treasure for you get hidden above, under the Eibish's throne, under the Kisei HaKavod, nobody could touch there. So the Mefarshim say that it's not only that it's Lamaila, already in the previous point he said that I'm hitting a treasure above, but even above, it could be in a level where Malachim or other spiritual beings could have some connection to it. But he says, no, it's in a level above where no one can reach, under the Eibish's Kisei HaKavod. Another third point, Avoisai, my ancestors, Gonzu Davish Enes, they hid their treasures here in this world, which is in existence that doesn't produce anything, no fruits that come of it. I hid through tzedakah something that will produce fruits. Shenema, as the pasuk says, Imru tzadik hitoyev ki pri malaleim yechelo. That the tzaddik, that he does tzedakah, so then there's pri malaleim, that the fruits that comes from what they do, from their actions, and that's what they eat. A fourth point, my ancestors, they put aside the treasures of money. What I put aside is oitzris of nefashis, spiritual beings. Shenema, as it says, pri tzaddik. What is the pri of a tzaddik? Eitz chayim, a tree of life. Lekech nefashis. He takes souls for himself. So it's ruchnius that he has. Chacham, nefashis chacham. Sorry, that goes together. Nefashis chacham. Avoisai, a fifth point, my ancestors, Gonzo Lachedim, what they put aside, what they hid, their treasures, that they don't keep it for themselves forever, they're hitting it for future generations, for others. What I hid, it's for myself. I'll have the benefits of it. It'll be for you. The tzedakah, you'll reap the benefits of the tzedakah. The last point that they said is, Avoisai, Gonzo Lo'elam Azer. What my ancestors hid was here only what they could benefit from in this world. And I hid what I will also have in Olam Haba. That when the tzedakah that you give in this world will go ahead of you when you come Lamaila, and the glory of Hashem will bring you in. So it mentions here 6 things. The Mefarshim say this is like the 6 things, or it corresponds to the 6 things that the Gemara mentioned before, that anybody that gives tzedakah is zeichet to 6 brachas. That's why he mentioned over here 6 different points.
Yeah, but the 5th one needs explanation.
What's the 5th one again? Yeah.
So that's good. That's not bad.
Yeah, okay, but it doesn't mean over here in the sense of acherim and la'atzmi that they want it for themselves in it because of selfishness. What he's saying is that whatever you do in this world is temporary. You can benefit when you're alive. Afterwards, you lose your entire benefit of it. Mashenkin la'atzmi basically saying that it's eternal. You could benefit from it forever. Oh, it's always going to be there for you. Okay, this is the conclusion of the sugya of tzedakah. We go back now to the Mishnah where it discussed the halachas of people that are living together in a city, that they have to participate with one another for building the wall of the city and so on. So the Mishnah said, so when a person moves into a city, he doesn't have to immediately participate with the people in the city, only after he's there for 12 months. That's what the Tanna Kama says. But now, then the Mishnah said that Rav Shimon Gamliel says, as soon as you buy a house in the city, even if you're there for a short period of time, you become like a member in the city, and you have to participate with everything of the city. Says the Gemara Mastis in the like Rav Shimon Gamliel. What it says in our Mishnah is not like what Rav Shimon Gamliel said. The Tanya, Rav Shimon Gamliel says, in Konaba Karka Kol Shuhu, that if a person acquires a piece of land, just any tiny piece of land, whatever it is, so then you're ready. You have to be mishtahareo kanshir. You're like the people of the city, and you have to participate. So in our Mishnah it said if you buy a house. Over here it says no, even without a house, you buy any piece of real estate in the city. The Gemara says, but Tanya, in another brayso we learned that Rav Shimon Gamliel said different. Rav Shimon Gamliel loime imkana shom karka harauya lebeis dira. It's not enough that you buy any tiny piece of real estate and you become like all the people of the city. It has to be a piece of karka that's fit to be that you can build a house on it. Then areya kanshir. Then you're going to be like the people of the city. So the Gemara answers today, Tanoi valib Rav Shimon Gamliel. Yeah, it's a machlokes. It's 2 different Tanoim that are repeating in the name of Rav Shimon Gamliel differently. Whether it's any piece of real estate or only a piece of land that you can build a house on it. Zog Teilige Mishnah. This was mentioned, this Mishnah, part of it was mentioned already before in the beginning of the Masechta. This Mishnah talks about partners that have a right at any time. Any partner has a right that he wants out from the partnership, he wants to separate, he wants to split. So Zog the Mishnah, Ein Chalken es achotzer. You can't divide. People own a courtyard together. So one cannot force the other to split this courtyard unless the space, it's 8 amas, and you have to, after you split, each one will have 4 amas to use his part of the chutzner. If it's less than that, then you can't force your partner to split because you can have such a small space that it's very not practical to use it all. And if they own a field together, so then you can't split this field unless each one has 9 kav that he can plant for himself, whether wheat or barley, different shiurim that say what this refers to, but you have to have at least 9 kav for yourself. And also, Rabbi Yehuda argues, half this amount. If each one has 9 half kavin, that's enough that you can split. In a garden, in a garden, as long as one has a half a kav and the other could have a half a kav, that's enough that each one, it's worth it for him to use the part of his garden separately. Rabbi Kiva says half of that amount. Beis Reiva, a quarter of a kav is the amount that's necessary to have each one to split a garden. Not a mansion or a mairan, which is also a palace or some kind of mansion. A what? How do they touch the difference?
Or a hall.
Okay, a hall or a salon. Okay, whatever. So these big places that people own together, and v'loyes ha'shoivach, and not a dovkot, v'loyes a talis or a garment, v'loyes a merchat. So if they own a bathhouse together, v'loyes beis abad or a olive press, and v'loy as beis hashlochen, or a field which is a beis hashlochen. This is different than a regular field which relies on rainwater, but this is a field that has a spring of water in it, and therefore you can plant with this spring of water in it. So it's something that even if it's smaller than the size that we mentioned before, it pays for a person to plant there because he always has water available from the spring in this field. One second, let me just... that's the type of Beis HaShlachan, okay? So in all these cases, you divide it, but you have to make sure that each one has a space that he can use for himself. Now, the rule here is as follows. Anytime 2 people are partners in any object or any space, whatever it is, if you divide it, even after you divide it, what each one still has will still have its original name on it, and he can still use it the way it was used originally. When his part, chelkin, then it can be divided. If after you divide it, so then it gets broken, and it doesn't have its original name on it anymore, it can't be used the way it was, then ain't chelkin, then you don't divide it. So that applies to all these different things here. So the Mishnah doesn't give a specific shear for any of them, but it's just telling you the rule. And the Mishnah concludes, when is everything that we're saying here the case that we don't divide? We're talking about when you have partners and one wants to divide and the other doesn't, so one can't force the other. If they both are in agreement that they want to divide, even if they're going to have a very small thing and it won't have its name and it won't have its original use, so then even less than the shiurim mentioned before, they can divide. And Rashi says there's no chiddush to this. Obviously, if they both agree, they could divide. But the main chiddush that the Mishnah is mentioning this for is the next point. The Kisvei HaKodesh, when it comes to people that are partners in Kisvei HaKodesh, and as Rashi says, then we're talking about Tanakh that was written on scrolls, not in a sefer the way it's bound today, but it's in a scroll. So even if they both want to divide the scroll, we don't divide it. It's a gnai to take it and to cut it in half. So therefore, they have to keep it as is. Talk to Gemara, Rabasi said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan about the shir that the Mishnah says regarding a courtyard. So the courtyard we're talking about is in front of the houses. Rashi said at the beginning of the Masechta, in front of the house is the front yard. That's the courtyard we're talking about. And it said if you want to split that courtyard, each one has to get at least a space of 4 amas. So he said about this, the 4 amas that we said each of the shutfin have to have when you split, that's chutz mishal psachim. That's actually besides another 4 amas that you have to have in front of the entrance to the house. That's there by this courtyard. So which basically means each one has to have 8 amas in order to be able to divide. 4 amas to be able to use for whatever you want to use the chatzah for. And then right in front of the door, the entrance, you have to have another space of 4 amas so that when you come in with your packages, you're able to unload your things there in that area. We saw this, we learned this way in the Braisa as well. The Braisa says, you don't divide the chatzah of partners. Each one has to have 8 amas. But for Ha'anan, Tanan, in our Mishnah it said, that it's enough that each one has only 4 amas. So we see, like Rabasi said, when our Mishnah said 4 amas, it meant 4 amas of the usage of space, besides the 4 amas in front of the door of the house to unload your packages. So that proves like what Rabasi said. Others said the same point, but it was first asked as a question. In our Mishnah it says, you only divide when each one gets 4 amas. So that we have a contradiction, because Vatanya and Abraisi we learned that you need to, each of the partners that are dividing should get 8 amas. And when Abasi said in the name of Rabbi Yechina to answer, when it said in our Mishnah 4 amas, chutz mishel psachim. That's besides additional 4 amas in front of the entrance. Amar Rav Huna said now about this halachas, as we see here, the entrance, the door that there is to your part of the house is significant, because you need to have space for in front of your house to unload your packages when you come to your house. So based on this, Rav Huna says, Chotzer mischalekes lefi psacheha. When you divide the courtyard in front of a house, if people own houses that open to the same front yard, you divide it according to the entrances that they have in their house that opens up into this courtyard. Which means if one person has 2 doors of his house that open to this courtyard, the other person only has 1, so then the front yard will be divided 2/3 to the one that has the 2 doors and 1/3 to the one that has only 1 door. Rav Chisda says, no, it doesn't work that way. Yeah, because you have a door, so each one gets for the entrance of the door to the courtyard, so he gets 4 amas of space for each entrance that he has by his house. But then, after you give each one the space of 4 amas for his door, the rest of the front yard you divide equally between the partners that their houses are opened into this courtyard. Taikva said Rav Chisda, and a Bryce we looked like Rav Chisda's opinion. Psachim shebachotze, the opening of the person's house that opens into a front yard. Yeshlan arba ames, each person gets for the door, his doorway, his entrance, 4 ames. Hoyel lezeh pesach echad, one of them has only 1 entrance. The lezeh shnei psachim, the other has 2. Zesh yeshle pesach echad, the one that has 1 opening, noitel arba ames, so he gets the 4 ames for that opening. Zesh yeshle shnei psachim, the one that has 2 entrances, noitel shmein ames. So he can take 8. He takes because for the 2 entrances that he has. But v'hashad and the remainder of the front yard, chalkim b'shava, that's divided equally between them, exactly like Rav Chisda said. And the Brisa continues, Pesach rochov shmeine ames. What is if the entrance, your door, the entrance into your home is very wide? It's 8 ames wide. So then neitel shmeine ames. So then you take that width of 8 ames also in the courtyard. And then the rest of the property is divided equally between the other people that have an opening to this yard here. Sorry, did I go up a line?
Yeah, not
Okay, sorry. So you take 8 ames right in front of the wide opening of your house that you have, okay? And then 4 ames in the chotzer. So the Gemara clarifies what this means when it adds and says 4 ames in the chotzer. What's the additional 4 ames that it mentions here? This is what it meant to say. If you have a wide opening to your house that's 8 ames wide, so you take also a space in front of that opening, 8 ames, but that 8 ames, how wide is it? It's the width of 4 ames, 8 ames by the width of 4 ames. Another halacha Meimer said regarding the rights of a person in a courtyard. Hi, paid the sufli. If a person owns a pit in the courtyard, what is this pit used for? You throw in the pits of dates, and those pits of the dates are then used for animal feed. And he has this pit that he stores these dates, these pits there. Yeshloi arba ames l'chol ruach v'ruach. So if this pit is in his courtyard, so then in order for him to be able to access it and to be able to throw things in there, he has the only rights of 4 ames around this pit from all sides. But for Loyamara, this was only said that's if that pit is not right by the opening of his house. In other words, if a person has a doorway that opens into his backyard, let's say, and right there by the opening of his house into the backyard, there's a pit, this pit that's used for this purpose. And so if it's right by his doorway, so then he only has those 4 ames right there where he goes out of his house and throws the pits of the dates into this pit. So then he doesn't have to have space all around to be able to access it. Again, so again, if he does not have, if it's not right near his door, but it's somewhere in a corner in his courtyard, then he's going to have the space of 4 amas around and around. But if it's right by the doorway of his house that goes out into the backyard, and that you have that pit right there, so then he has that area of 4 amas in front of his door, and he has access to his pit. Rav Huna said, Achsadra. Ein lo dal damas, an achsadra. How do they translate achsadra there? A what?
Pavilion.
A pavilion, yeah, a pavilion. So basically, this is a place that has 3 walls around it, and the 4th side is open. So it's called a pavilion. So ein lo dal damas. You don't get the space of 4 amas for the entrance like it is by every door to a house. And the Gemara explains, because what's the reason why we said that besides the 4 amas of space of usage that you have for your courtyard, you additionally get 4 amas for the entrance into your house. Mishum piruk masoi. It's because you need that space in front of your door to unload the packages that you have when you come to your house. But here, because this is a pavilion and the 4th wall is totally open, there's no wall that you can go straight in. There's no walls at all. Oh, it's just beams. That's what it is. Oh, okay. Sorry. So there's a case later maybe, which is what I said. Here we're talking about a pavilion just has beams that holds up a roof above it and has no walls around it at all. Okay, very good. So over here in this case though, because there's no walls at all, so Efshir the ayel legavoy. He's able to enter. He comes with his donkey, with his packages. He's able to go inside, and he can unload inside. So he doesn't need that extra space in front. Most of Rav Sheshes asks on this. It says in a brayse, echad shari batim, whether you have the entrances to homes, vechad shari achsadrois, whether you have the entrances into a pavilion, yeshlan dal damas. They do have a space of 4 amas that you get in front of the entrance into this pavilion. And says the Gemara, no, Kitanya what is that pavilion talking about? Bachsadre de Beirav. It's a pavilion that was used by the yeshiva where they learned, where over there it does have walls around it. It is surrounded with walls. It has a lot of open windows, Rashi says. So therefore it's called an achsadre because it's very eerie with all these windows. But it did have walls around it. So over there in that kind of achsadre, you need space to unload your packages in front. You can't enter inside of it. So the Gemara asks, that's what the Bryce is talking about. Achsadre de beirav pshita. If it's an achsadre like it is where they used to learn, so definitely you have to get space in front of it to unload your packages. In idrunye ma'al yahu. This is a regular indoor. It's a wall, has walls around it. So for sure you have to have space in front. So Ella rather, the Gemara answers, what's the pshat on this brayse when it mentions this achsadre, b'achsadre rumaisa. It's an achsadre rumaisa, which has walls around it, but the walls do not reach to the roof. It's walls that are half walls. And therefore over here, you would think that maybe you're able to, in such a case, the brayse says that you think that maybe in such a case you're able to go in with your packages, but no. So there the brayse says that this achsadre that has only half walls, you have to have space to unload outside.
It's a regular room.
Huh?
It's a regular room.
But it only has half walls. It's achsadre rumaisa. That's what Rashi here says, right? The fanis nemuchais. The walls don't reach all the way up to the ceiling. It's probably it's like a half outdoor. You don't really have proper furniture in there. It's not used exactly like an indoor area. It's sort of like a porch. It has walls around it, but not also has a roof. So,
Right.
but the walls and it don't reach all the way up to the roof.
So he gets the Aladamas?
So yeah, and he does get the aldamas in front, even though you may think that he can go in and unload his packages inside because it doesn't have regular furniture in there, so he can go in with his donkey. But nevertheless, because it has walls around it, it's like a enclosed place, like a house, and you get the space in front. Tan Rabbanan and Abraisa we learned Beis Shar, a Beis Shar, that the house that's built as an entrance to go into then the house itself, or an achsadre, this pavilion we're talking about, or merpeses. Merpeses is when you have people that are living on a second floor and they have a porch, and then they use that porch to go down from the porch into the courtyard. Yashlen dal dams. So in front, they all get the 4 amas in order to unload their packages. The Braisa adds, now this achsadre, obviously that it's talking about, is the achsadre that we just mentioned before, the achsadre that has some walls around it. Otherwise, as we said, the achsadre that's just an open pavilion, you don't get those 4 amas. Now the Braisa clarifies regarding the merpeses that we just mentioned. Hayu chamisha batim psuchim merpeses. If there are 5 apartments on the second floor and they all open up to one porch, And then from that porch, they all go down with steps or with a ladder down into the courtyard. So even though it's 5 people that live on the top floor and there are 5 people are using this mirpeses, so you may think if there's 5 people living there, so you have to have space for all 5 people in front of this. When you come down the ladder in the courtyard, there should be space for all of them to unload their packages. But no, they all get just one space of 4 amas in front of this ladder to go up to the porch to unload their packages. Rabbi Yochanan asks from Rabbi Yanai regarding this halacha of the space that you get when you own a house or in a courtyard. So he asked him the shaila, lol shel tarnagolim. When you have a chicken coop, yesh lo dal damis or ein lo dal damis. So in front of this chicken coop, do you get also a space of 4 amas in front of it or not? Amalei, so Rabbi Yanai that is answered, time in Mai, what's the reason why you get that space of 4 amas in front of the opening of your house? Mishum pirik masai, to have space to unload your packages. But hacha, when it comes to the chicken coop, they don't need space in front of it. They just jump up and jump down. That's how they go in. So there's no reason to have an extra space of 4 amas. Rav asks Rav Nachman the shaila regarding a house. A house, half of it has a roof over it and half does not have a roof. And that house is open to a courtyard. You get space of 4 amas in front of this house to unload your packages or not? Amalei, so Rav Nachman answered, you don't get a space of 4 amas because here you can go with your donkey, with your packages into your house and unload there. You don't have to unload in the courtyard. And he explained, needless to say, if the half of your house that does have the roof is in the back, and in the front half of your house there's no roof, the efshe, the ayla gavoy mefarik, so then you could go into the place, you can go straight into that front part of your house and unload there. There's no roof there, you probably don't even have furniture there. It's an open outdoor space basically. Even if the part that is the roof over your house is in the front, in the outside, but nevertheless, efshe the ayla gavoy mefarik, you can nevertheless pass through and go to the back of your house, which does not have a roof there and there's no furniture there, and you can unload there. What happens if you have one person that lives in an alleyway? So here what we're talking about is the way the houses were built in those times. So there was courtyards that had houses that were opened into the courtyards, and then these courtyards were then opened into an alleyway. The alleyway is like a dead-end street that's open from one side, and then there's a courtyard that's surrounded from all 3 sides, and it's enclosed that way. Now this alleyway and these courtyards is built here, and then right beside it there's the same thing, other courtyards and other alleyways, and this is how their developments were built. One alleyway, then beside it another courtyard and other alleyways. So now this person has his chutzner that opens up to one alleyway. And now what he wants to do is, instead of him opening up his door to his house, to the chutzner that's going to open then into this alleyway, now instead, he wants to close off his opening to this alleyway that's, let's say, in the front yard of his house, and he's going to open up a opening in the backyard of his house to the alleyway that's by the back of his house. Instead of him sort of being part of this, the people that are in this alleyway, he's going to have his entrance that's going to be in the other alleyway that's behind his house. So b'nei mavoy ma'akven olav or ei ma'akven olav. The question is, the people of the other alleyway, this person, the way this chutzah was built and the way it was designed, the development was that he always has his opening to this alleyway here. Now he wants to switch and he wants to join and have his opening to another alleyway that's behind his house. Is he allowed? Can they stop him and say, we don't want you to come and have your traffic come through our alleyway here, or not? So he answered him, yeah, they could prevent him of opening up his courtyard into their alleyway. That's not the way it was designed. He's part of the development of another alleyway that's on the other side, in the front yard of his house. He can't now switch and go and open to the alleyway that's behind his house. Another halacha, achsanya, when you have achsanya. So Rashi's pshat of achsanya is when you have guests, not guests that you're actually looking for, but you have the army that comes and they take over. You know, when they're passing through a city, they come, they take over, and they just are there as your guests, and you have to feed them. So how do you divide the responsibility of the people there that have to feed these people that come and take over your space? Lefi b'nei adam mischalekes, do we divide that the responsibility goes according to the amount of people that live in your home, or lefi psachim mischalekes, or goes by the amount of doors that there are to your house? Each one according to you have one house, one door, so it goes basically by the houses. Amalei, so he answered him, Lefi b'nei adam mischalekes. It goes by the amount of people that there are in your house. That's going to be your responsibility, your share for feeding these people of the army that come in and take up residence in your place temporarily. That's Rashi's pshat in Achsanya. Tanya Nami Hachi, we learned in the Braisa as well, similar this halacha regarding the Achsanya. The Braisa first says another halacha, Zevel shebachotzer, the garbage that's in the chotzer. So now this Zevel could be turned into fertilizer. So the question is, who has the rights to it? Mischalekes lefi psachim. So you divide it according to the amount of houses that their doors are opened into this chotzer. That's how you divide this fertilizer. Achsanya, this army that comes and takes over the place, lefi b'nei adam. According to the amount of people that there are in the home, that's the responsibility for you to feed them. Amar Rav Huna said, Echad mibnei mavoi. One of the people that has his opening of his courtyard into this alleyway, Shabikesh listaim kineged pischai. So now he wants to close off the area that's in front of his opening to this alleyway. Just like we mentioned before, in front of every person's house, you have a courtyard and you have the rights of 4 amas in front of your house to unload your packages there. So in the opening to the alleyway, so the area of 4 amas is sort of your rights to unload your packages there. So now the person says, look, if it's my rights to unload my packages in this area in front of my courtyard where it opens into the alleyway, I want to enclose that area. I want to close it off so it can be private for me to unload my packages there. If a person wants to do that, b'nei mavoi, all the other people that are using this alleyway to get to their courtyards, ma'akfin olav, they can prevent them from enclosing that area. Why? Because by you enclosing your area of the alleyway in front of your courtyard, you're making it inconvenient for the other people of the alleyway that they have to go around it to get to their opening. Now, what you see over here is the alleyway has people that live further out of this alleyway, closer to the Rishus Harabim. There are people that live further in the alleyway. It doesn't make a difference who it is. Rav Huna says anybody that has this opening to this alleyway and you want to now create a certain enclosure in the area in front of your courtyard, you're not allowed. You're causing other people to have to go around you. But the Gemara asks on this from a Braise, Meisve, and a Braise, we learned as follows. Chomesh chatzeros psuches lemavoi. When you have 5 courtyards, that the entrance of these courtyards opens into this alleyway. So kulan mishtamshais and machitzaina. All of the people of the alleyway are allowed to walk through and go in the space of the person that's the further out in this alleyway, that he opens up into this alleyway. Right? Because they have to get out. That's the space where they have to go out into the Rishus Harabim. So therefore they all have the right to walk through his area, which is in the Daled Ames, in front of the outside person here that opens into this alleyway. They all have the right to walk through there. Now, however, the person that lives in the chutzner that opens up to the alleyway, and he's the furthest out, in other words, he's the closest to the opening of this alleyway into the Rishus Harabim, he could only use the space of the alleyway that he needs for himself to get into his own courtyard. He doesn't have a right to go further into the alleyway to use the space in the alleyway that goes to the other people's courtyards further in, because he has no reason to go there. He just has the right to go into the alleyway to get to his own courtyard. V'ashar, and also, all other people that live further into the alleyway, they can use the space of the person that's the second courtyard going into the alleyway. The person that's the second courtyard in, so he could use the space to get to his courtyard, and also the space of the person that's the first, that's out, that's closest to the Rishus Harabim. So Nimtzes, it comes out, Pnimis mishtameshes la'atzma. The one that lives, that his courtyard is the furthest inside this alleyway, so he can use that space to get to his courtyard for himself. And he could also use the space of the alleyway that's in front of all the other people's courtyards that are further out, because he has to pass through them to get to his chutzner that's the deepest inside the alleyway. But the other people that they are using the alleyway to get to their courtyard that's not as deep in, so they don't have the rights to go and use the alleyway that's further in to get to his courtyard. So what's the Gemara's question? Over here you see that the people that are on the outside courtyards, they don't have a right to go into the alleyway in the space where there's the inner person's courtyard, But Rav Huna said different. Rav Huna said anybody in this courtyard, in this that wants to open up a space. Sorry, he has a opening that goes into the alleyway, and he wants to enclose any area in this alleyway to stop other people from coming there. He's not allowed. Why? Because you're making it inconvenient for others to pass through there. But why are you making it inconvenient for others? If you're the one that's the deepest in the alleyway, you're not making it inconvenient for anybody else. Nobody has rights to go there anyways. So the Gemara answer is it's a machlokes Tanoihi. This halacha that Rav Huna said is a machlokes Tanoi. Because the Tanya and another brayso we learned, and this goes back to the halacha mentioned before, Echad mibnei mavoi, one of the people in an alleyway, shebikesh lahachse pischai lemavoi acher. He wants to close up the opening that he has to this alleyway, that's let's say in the front of his house, and instead he wants to open up that he should have an opening to a different alleyway that's behind his house, in the backyard. So Bnei Mavi Makvin Olav, the people of the other alleyway can stop him from that. It's not the way the development was built. He doesn't have rights to open up space into their alleyway. Ha Yasasom, if a person's opening to this alleyway was closed off, meaning that he did originally have a door, an opening from his courtyard into this alleyway. That's how it was originally built. But now, for whatever reason, it was closed off. He wants to reopen it. Now, the people of the alleyway cannot prevent him from reopening it because it was originally built that way. Even if it was closed off, he can open it up again. Divrei Rebbe, this is Rebbe's opinion. Then Rab Shimon ben Elazar says another halacha. When you have 5 courtyards that open up into one alleyway, kulan mishtamshin b'mavoi zu imzu. They all could use this mavi one with another. They all have equal rights to use the entire alleyway. That's what Rab Shimon ben Elazar says. Okay, now the Gemara explains Rab Shimon ben Elazar seems to be saying something that's not related to what Rabbi was talking about. So the Gemara asks, Chatzeidos man dechar shmayu. Why is Rab Shimon ben Elazar talking about 5 courtyards opened into one alleyway if Rabbi did not mention anything about that? So what is Rab Shimon ben Elazar arguing on Rabbi? So the Gemara explains, here we see the machlokes regarding this point we mentioned before, because chsure mechsere really is missing in the words of the Braisa, v'hachi katani, this is how the Braisa has to be learned. V'chein chamish chatzeires apsuches l'mavoi, that Rabbi, this is Rabbi continuing and saying, if you have 5 courtyards that are open to one alleyway, kulon mishtamshay semachitzayna, all people that their courtyards open into this alleyway have the rights to use the area in the alleyway which is further out in order for them to get out into the street. But the one that lives in the courtyard that opens up to the outside part of the alleyway, he only has rights to use that alleyway there, on that outside part of the alleyway, not deeper in. Deeper in, he has no reason to go there. He doesn't have to, he can get to his courtyard right over here. Divrei Rabbi. That's Rabbi's opinion, which is like what it said in the previous Braisa, that we don't say that all people of the courtyards open into this alleyway have rights to the entire alleyway. It depends where you are. If you're further out, you don't have rights deeper in. If you're all the way at the end, then you have rights to the entire alleyway. But on this, Rab Shimon ben Elazar argued, Rab Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Chamesh Chatzeres Apsuchas Lemavoi, if you have 5 courtyards that open up into this alleyway, Kulon Mishtamshus B'mavoi. They all have rights to use the entire alleyway, even those that are further out can use even the alleyway that's deeper in, even though they don't have to get to their courtyard there, it doesn't matter. They can use the entire alleyway. That's why their courtyard opens to this alleyway, they have rights to the entire thing. So let's just see the conclusion of the Inyan here. Omar in the Braisa, the Tana said, Haya Sasum, if a person had an opening to an alleyway from his courtyard and it was closed off. Now, he wants to reopen it. The people of the alleyway cannot prevent him because it was an opening. The fact that it was closed off doesn't take away his rights to reopen it. What Rava says about this, that's only if the frame of the door that was open to the alleyway was not broken down, was not removed. If it was completely closed off, it was like basically the place where the door was, you built like a wall there and there was no frame anymore left, then B'nai Mavi Makfan Holav. Now, once it was permanently removed, this opening, and you must have had an opening in a different direction, now to reopen the door, it's not reopening, it's like opening a new door here because it was totally removed. So then it's not allowed. Abai says to Rav, Tanya the Messiah, I'll bring you in a Braisa that's a proof to what you said. Bayis Sasum, a house that was closed off, Yeshloi Dal Damas. He still has the 4 amas in front of that door to enter into his house. As we mentioned before, you get that space of 4 amas when you come to divide a property, and you have that space for your packages. Even if the door, the entrance to your house was closed off, you still get those 4 amas. But Parat says Patsimov, if not only the door was locked up, closed up, but once all the frame of this door was totally removed, now they just built a plain wall there and with Aldamas. So now there's no leftover of the doorway at all, then you don't get that space of 4 amas there for your packages. It's just a wall now. Okay, now someone not guide us this parentheses here, but let's just read what it says here. Kever, shepischoi sasum, if you have a kever, that its opening is closed up, ein metame kol svivav, it's not metame everything that's around. Parat as patzimov is sasmai metame kol svivav. But if you remove any frame that there's around this kever, then it's metame all around. Rashi says it was excited by a kever that dalar amas around it, it's metame. Chachamu will geyser this gzeira. In order that you shouldn't come close to the kever and you shouldn't create a tent over yourself by this kever and you become tamei. So therefore, Chachamu will geyser. Now, bayis sasum, similar regarding a house that has a mace, a dead body inside the house. So if this is a house that the openings of the house are totally closed up, Eine metame kol svivo. So because there is a doorway to this house, even if that doorway is now temporarily closed off, but it's not completely closed up, and therefore the mace is going to be taken out of that doorway of the house. So therefore it's the house is going to be tamei. Around the house is not going to be tamei. 4 amas around the house is not tamei. Parat says Patsimov, however, if this entrance of the house, it was closed up, and the frame of the door was totally removed, and now it's just a wall. So now this house that's totally closed up, it becomes like a kever where it's completely closed. Metame kol svivov. Here the gzeira of Chachamim that around the kever, 4 amas around the kever is tamei. So too by this house that's totally closed up and there's no entrance anymore here. Therefore the gzeira of Chachamim will apply that around this house 4 amas will be tamei.